It's a lovely, green, pretty town.
Situated in the beautiful Flint Hills, Beaumont, Kansas has a rich farming and ranching legacy. Settled after the Civil War, it soon became a focal point for the booming cattle trade. In 1885, the St. Louis and San Francisco Railroad, better known as the Frisco, established a rail line in Beaumont. That same year, a water tower was built, which still stands today and serves as a historic landmark now and an important water stop for the fledgling railroad. To support the rail service, a hotel was built to serve passengers and train crews. In more modern times, a unique Beaumont feature was constructed, a grass airstrip that offers flyers a chance to fly in and enjoy Midwestern cuisine at the Beaumont Hotel. Beaumont, which means beautiful mountain, has preserved much of its history and looks forward to an exciting future. This video is more than just historical dates and interesting facts. This is about the people who dwell in the Flint Hills, their lives and their values they maintain. These are the people that have formed the past and will shape the future of Beaumont, Kansas.
Most of the songs that I play are the old songs. And you know, they'll come up and say they sure do like listening to the old songs.
The one I remember the most is her granddad. And I wouldn't say he was a character, I would just say he loved Beaumont. Sure. And he promoted it.
Family homesteaded here in 1877. They lived in a dugout for 2 years, and when they homesteaded this place, you had to live here for 3 years. So in 3 years, in 1879, they built this rock part of the house. And early part of it, they had a cook shack off to one side. It's been built on in 1900, 1942, and 1980, and we may build onto it again. So that's the history of the house. I feel very fortunate to live up here, and I appreciate it more now than I did 50 years ago. But yeah, we're real fortunate.
I was raised here, and then I left for a few years, went to Oklahoma, and I learned that the schoolhouse was for sale. When they finished school here, my grandfather purchased the hotel, J.C. Squire, and donated it to the church for a community center. And the church felt like it was too far away from the church to adequately use it, and so they decided to sell it. So I came back, bought the school, and remodeled it into a home.
I love the quietness, the Flint Hills, just to go ride, check cattle, just hunting, you know. I love it. My house is full of turkeys in the yard, and I get to watch. I'm back there by the airstrip, so I get to watch all the planes fly in, so it's kind of cool. And, it kind of takes you back to when everything was going on. I wish I was around a century earlier sometimes, so I'd seen the stockyards and been in that position.
It was a different life than living, you know, in a city. And it was, well, you were close to everyone. It was a small area. When I was young, we had 2 churches in Beaumont, and everybody more or less worked together. You knew everybody, and there were generations after generations lived there. And it was just a nice place.
We just got married and we had to have a place to live, so rent was cheap, and this is where we lived, and this is where the 2 children was born, and it was a nice town, except we didn't have no street lights. It's the darkest town you ever saw back then. But otherwise, there's a lot of, you know, we knew everybody.
Hey, my family's been here 122 years, since 1888. And my great-grandfather homesteaded a 160 right where we are. Had a little stone cabin on the creek just 100 yards from where we are. That's my family's start here. He was orphaned in the Civil War and ran off when he was 11 years old, and he was a rags to riches fellow.
My memories of Beaumont was a lot of fun through the child's eye. The folks never had to worry about us. When daylight came, and we would be out on the streets running, playing, fishing, hunting, doing a lot of good things that today's kids don't have with the computers and stuff. And the folks never worried about us. And we'd go down to the ponds down south of town and do silly things, you know, swim. We would do things like, when the roundhouse was here, we'd climb up on top of the roundhouse and reach over the edge of it and catch pigeons, things like that, you know. We'd climb up into the water tower and throw fish in there, things like that. You know, when you look back on it, everyone says, well, those were the good old days. Well, you know, for us, through the kids' eye, they were good old days. But when you look at it through your folks' eyes, it probably wasn't all that good, because, you know, we had no running water. You had no heat other than wood or propane, maybe. So the thought, if you talk to my mother about the good old days, they really weren't the good old days.
It's my understanding it was built in 1879. And the railroad, they knew the railroad was coming through. It hadn't actually reached there, but it was coming through.
Well, he had the hotel for 35 years. And then he remodeled it, and then it's kind of tumbled from one owner to the next, and now it's in operation by someone that's in that type of business that knows what to do to make it successful, and we are very appreciative to have it open and have it in good shape.
Beaumont was one of 3 main, I guess the term would be cattle loading. There were cattle pens there for over 9,000 head of cattle.
The restaurant was run, when it began, by an aunt of my father's. And of course there were many owners until my father bought it, and had no intentions of ever running it. When he bought it, he wanted a place for his customers. They were ranchers from Texas and different states.
When the cattle drives would come up from Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, they were one of the 3 main points of loading the cattle on the rail cars.
When he was opening his restaurant up, people from Wichita would fly in here and take pictures, and so they talked him into putting in an airstrip. Well, that turned it on, boy. And people from New York would going through, stay all night. Yeah. Had people from Kansas City fly in. Yeah.
I've been in the hotel business since I got out of law school. I had flown down there a couple of times in probably the late 70s with friends, early 80s, and heard about on the internet actually that this property was actually closed and for sale. And that included over 70 acres of ground on the edge of town, and about half of the block, the city block where the hotel is, and the vacant property immediately to the west. So I wound up purchasing it. The economy was good, business was good, hotel business was particularly good.